and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing happy, amazing and positive as always. Before I start this video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like and comment this video. It will help me out so much. So today I'm going to bring you guys another true crime case. I am pretty sure if you are a true crime sleuth like me, you would have heard this case. This is the case of the Watts family. Chris Watts was convicted of killing his wife Shannan, who was 15 weeks pregnant, as well as both of his daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. I've already done a video on the Netflix show, the documentary that came out about this case, but I didn't really go into the finer details of this case, so that is why I'm covering this case today. This really is a case that is so intense, makes you so angry, and honestly it's such an upsetting case. It's got a lot of, gruesome, violent details that may upset some viewers, so please click out if this is something that you do not want to listen to. In most cases like these, you would see that there was a history of domestic violence. But with this man, Chris Watts, there was no history of domestic violence. And, no one saw it coming, but no one ever really does, right? It's one of those things that you just never could imagine happening to someone that you know and love. I watched about 5 hours of the interview that's out, the jail interview that Chris Watts did. There is a lot to unpack. There's a lot to know. I feel like every time I look further and further into this case, there's just more and more information, but I'm going to try and stick to exactly what happened rather than too many of the theories. I will add some theories right at the end of this video. I want to just say this, I'm not going to tolerate any victim blaming or anything like that. There's a lot of stuff out there about Shannan Watts that is so disrespectful and so rude and paints her as this horrible wife and a horrible mother, and I am not going to tolerate that. If you do comment anything against the victim, I will simply just delete your comment. I'm not saying that Shannan was a perfect person. I'm not saying that she was a perfect wife or a perfect mother. No one ever is. I don't know what went on day to day in their life, but you've just got to ask yourself that, did anything she do in her marriage or her family life deserve her to be murdered? So just my disclaimer, guys, that all pieces of information that I found on this video, I found on the internet through documentaries, news articles, Shannan's Facebook interviews, things of that nature. So I do understand that not all pieces of information will be 100% accurate and not everyone's recollection of things will be the same. So I've tried to do my best to provide as accurate information as possible. And another disclaimer, guys, that all my true crime videos are to create domestic and family violence awareness. These videos of mine are purely for educational purposes only. Christopher Lee Watts was born on the 16th of May in 1985 in Spring Lake, North Carolina, USA. He was a child of Cindy and Ronnie Watts. He had a sister called Jamie Lynn Williams. They grew up in quite a disciplined home. His dad was quite a disciplinary and his mom was more of the loving and affectionate person. Chris was a student at Pine Forest High School. He was quite a bright student, very ambitious, and he loved sports from the ages of about 5 to 17. He was really heavily involved in sports. He was always quite a go with the flow kind of guy, very chill kind of guy, quiet, kept to himself quite a lot. Even at school, he was just to himself, didn't really want to be the popular kid or anything like that. His sister was more of the popular kid, but he just kind of wanted to be in his own little world with the couple of friends that he had. His mom described him as the perfect teenager, never really gave his parents much trouble at all. He didn't rebel. He was the type of person that just kind of got along with everyone and was really nice and polite. He was closer to his dad than he was with his mom. His dad would take him to races and sporting events and go to his sporting events where Chris would actually play, and he just developed this really strong bond with his father. However, one thing to note with his father was that he was quite emotionless, wasn't very expressive with his emotions, kept a lot to himself, and Chris kind of developed those personality traits as well. Chris's dream was to be a NASCAR crew chief technician, and he would often go to NASCAR races with his father. In fact, after school, he became a service technician at a dealership, and he really loved his job. He was kind of pursuing his passion. From the outside, him and his family seemed to be doing really well and seemed to be quite a reputable family. However, behind closed doors, there were some struggles that the family were going through. At one point, Ronnie Watts, Chris's dad, was addicted to drugs, and Cindy Watts actually thought that Ronnie was cheating on her because there was like some money that was missing that couldn't be accounted for. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't always great like most families. Chris met Shannan Catherine Watts in 2010. Shannan was born on the 10th of January in 1984 in Passaic, New Jersey, and raised in North Carolina. She was an independent businesswoman who absolutely loved her job. She was almost kind of like a workaholic in her early 20s. She loved her work. She immersed herself into her job. She was a really, really hard worker, and she even bought her first home at the age of 25. Doing that at such a young age by yourself is a huge, huge accomplishment. She had one brother called Frankie Ruzek. Her mother is called Sandra Ruzek, and her father is called Frank Ruzek. They came from an Italian background. They loved to cook, and they were just a very, very close-knit family. Shannan was previously married to a man called Leonard King. However, they divorced in 2009, 1 year before she met Chris. Her marriage with Leonard ended really, really badly. It wasn't a great relationship.
I remember coming out feeling the weakest I've ever felt in my life. Like I was no good. I wasn't good enough. My insecurities got deeper, stronger, and I felt like I was not worthy of anything.
It took away everything from her, and she was just not in a good place. Shannan was described as such a loving person. She was such a good friend to so many people, and she was the kind of friend that if you needed something, she would be the first one at your doorstep. She was the kind of friend that everybody needed, and she was a close friend to her friends. Like, they would be talking every day. They had a very close relationship. She was very social. She was also the type of person that had time for anyone and everyone. Before Shannan had met Chris, one of her mutual friends actually sent Shannan a suggestion of Chris Watts of becoming a possible friend added to her Facebook list. But Shannan was like, I don't know this guy, I'm not interested, and she deleted it. During this time, she wasn't in a good place. She struggled with health issues. She was diagnosed with lupus. Mentally, physically, she was not okay. Shannan said that this was one of the darkest times in her life, and things just kept getting really scary for her. She quit her job that she had for 9 years. She lost a lot of friends in this time as well because they just didn't understand her silent struggle. On the outside, she seemed okay, but on the inside was a whole other story, and she was not dealing with things well at all. She even said in a Facebook video that she was in a really, really bad place, and she didn't really think that she could come out of it too easily. So in 2010, Chris actually sent Shannan a Facebook friend request.
I got a friend request from Chris. I was in a really, really, really bad place. And I got a friend request from Chris on Facebook. And I was like, oh, what the heck? I'm never going to meet him. Accept.
And if it's one friend request that was the most deadly of hers, it was Chris's. And it's scary to think that this all happened just from a friend request. Although Shannan thought that she would never meet Chris, they started talking a lot on social media, and one thing led to another, and before she knew it, she was on a date with Chris. And Chris says that he was really, really nervous on this date with Shannan. She was more of the open and confident one, where Chris was more of the shy one. This was his kind of first date. He never really had a history of dating, so he was more of the reserved one. Shannan's mother said that when Shannan had met Chris, she was completely lifted out of her dark time. She was doing so much better. She seemed so much happier. And this really made the family appreciate Chris because he was really in her life. Like, he was taking her to these doctor's appointments and going to this colonoscopy that she had. And this was like really early on in their dating life. So going to a colonoscopy is quite an intimate thing, but Chris went and Shannan appreciated him so much.
I'm telling you, when I met Chris, I pushed him away. I gave every excuse for him to run. I gave him an out every single day. I tortured him. I rejected him. I pushed him away time and time and time again. But when I canceled dates last minute, because that's how life is with my health challenges, you cancel things last minute, and it's hard for people to get. It's hard for me to understand. But he stuck around. And he stuck around because he was the one for me. And he is amazing.
This really proved to Shannan that he was there for her. He was going to support her. And this is the type of person that she needed. And she says that he saw the worst of her, but he accepted it. So while Shannan is on cloud 9 about her relationship with Chris, Chris's family did not like Shannan. They thought that she was abusive. They thought that she was not good for him. They didn't like the way that Shannan treated Chris. Shannan and his family didn't ever really agree on anything, and Chris's mum thought that she was hiding something about her past and wasn't telling all of her secrets. Shannan didn't really get treated very well by Chris's family, and that was a really heartbreaking thing to learn because Shannan did go through a lot of things, and she admits to pushing him away, and maybe the family saw that and didn't agree with what she was doing. As a third party looking into a situation, it probably didn't look the best, but no one knew the relationship that they had. I think that in the beginning, Chris had every intention of being the best partner that he could possibly be for Shannan. Chris even blew up at his family in arguments and had fights with his family because of the fact that they didn't like Shannan. He was sticking up for her and he really just fought for her. Chris also told his family that he didn't need them anymore because he had Shannan. So this kind of just made the family even kind of angrier and pushed them to really not like Shannan because they felt like Shannan was taking their son away. Some of Shannan's friends said that Shannan was a bossy person, but not bossy in a negative way, more of a person who would push you to achieve your potential, to push you to achieve all your dreams and goals and really motivate you. You know, the type of friend that everyone needs. You know, she did not condone laziness or moping around. She really just pushed you to be the best version of yourself. And from what you see on her Facebook, she was a motivator. She was quite inspirational. Even just going through her Facebook, even I learned a thing or two from her. Even after she's not even here anymore, she's still teaching people and still inspiring people. You know, she was so transparent with her life and her struggle with health and with her relationship, and how she just blossomed into this beautiful person coming out of this darkness and just seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. She just was a helper, and she wanted more and more people to get out of their darkness. So their relationship was beautiful in the beginning. She was so in love. She was head over heels. Chris was not the typical kind of guy that she would go for. But because he had proved himself to her, she was like, I love this man. And it's just like so sad to think about what he would do to her years after. Looking in hindsight now, after knowing what's happened to her, no matter how beautiful and fairy tale like this relationship was, you just wish it never happened so that she would still be alive. So as their relationship was blossoming more and more every day, Chris proposed to Shannan at a beach, and together they moved to Colorado. This is where Chris's dad started doing drugs. He started doing white powder, and he said that this was because he was so upset and depressed that his son had left. He moved away and never came back, and he missed his son. This gave even more of his family an avenue to blame Shannan for taking Chris away. And what they didn't understand is that Chris was starting this new life with Shannan, and they just couldn't let him go. Even Chris says that Shannan never took him away. They just visited Colorado one day and they really liked the area. They wanted to raise their family there, and that is why they decided to move there. When Chris found out about his dad's addictions, he spoke to his father and said, you really, really need to stop this. This is absurd. So that is when his father stopped taking drugs. So after 2 years of being together, in November 2012, Chris and Shannan flew back to North Carolina to tie the knot. While there were wedding plans going on, Shannan and Chris's family would have massive arguments, and things were just becoming more tense between Shannan and her in-laws to be. When the wedding day came around, Chris's family did not attend. And this really shows their character, I think. One of the most happiest days of your child's life and you don't attend is kind of like a not so great move. You know, they didn't really support Chris in a lot of his decisions with Shannan. However, his grandma was there and Shannan's whole family attended, and they were so supportive of their relationship, and they really, really liked Chris, like I said, and her dad gave this beautiful speech.
I couldn't ask for a better man for her. He makes her smile and she makes him smile. God bless you both.
I just want to say I love you both. You look great together. And she's been looking her whole life for a good guy. I couldn't ask for a better one. I love you guys.
That was honestly so bittersweet, because you hear him say all these lovely things about Shannan's new husband. But watching it back and knowing what he did to her, it's just a sick in the stomach kind of feeling. The wedding was beautiful. Shannan looked like a princess. She looked so happy despite his family not being there. She just looked so excited and just so ready with this new chapter. Even Chris, despite his family not being there, seemed really happy, and it just showed that they were really happy together. And to think that 8 years later he would be the one to take her life and their future kids' lives is unbelievable. By looking at these pictures, you just would never ever expect it. Shannan was the dominant person in the relationship, and like I said, Chris was quite of the reserved, quiet, composed kind of guy. He always listened to what Shannan said. If Shannan wanted something done, he would do it. You know, she knew what she wanted. She wasn't afraid of voicing what she was thinking and what she wanted, and that is a really powerful thing. I think that a lot of people think of her to be this horrible, bossy, excuse my language, but this is what I've seen online. They refer to her as a B word just because she stood her ground. And that is not okay. Every relationship is different. It just depends on the type of personality that people have. And Chris knew this from the beginning, and he still chose to marry her. And if this is something that he didn't like, why did he marry her? So in Colorado, they bought a really, really beautiful home. It was a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom home. And in the same year, which was in 2013, they had their firstborn, beautiful, beautiful daughter called Bella on the 17th of December. And then 2 years later, in the summer, they had their second daughter called Celeste. And she was just a cheeky, cute, beautiful looking girl, and she just seemed like she would be so entertaining. There are some videos that just show the nature of these kids and how gorgeous they were. In the same year as Celeste was born, which was in 2015, Chris and Shannan actually went into some financial problems. There was a lot of credit card debt, there was a lot of doctors' bills that they had to pay, bills in general, and this accumulated a debt of $70,000. after this debt, Shannan kind of took over the finances because she was better with finances. And the next year in 2016, Shannan started working for a company called Level. She worked as an independent rep. It was an MLM company that sold health supplements and weight loss patches under the name Thrive. And she excelled in this. She was so good at her job. And once you achieve a certain amount of sales, you get a car allowance and you get awarded with paid trips, paid vacations to places, lots of business perks, lots of personal perks, lots of competitions that you win. And she was thriving. She was enjoying her success so much. She bought a Lexus car. She would travel for work as well, attend lots of different conferences. She knew a lot of people within the company. And because of this job also, she had to promote a lot of their products that they had. And she was such a natural in front of the camera. She was so transparent with her life, and she somehow managed to morph the personal experiences and personal struggles that she had into this business. And people were so drawn to her because she was so open. She was an open book, and a lot of people could relate to her. She was just so charismatic and sweet, and she even involved Celeste and Bella in the videos as well. Chris would sometimes come in the videos as well. However, he didn't like to be in the videos, but he did it because he says that he wanted to support her. He lost a bunch of weight as well, and he started to really look after himself with the health side of things as well. Even Shannan lost so much weight, and she said that this company, this brand, made her become a healthier version of herself, both mentally and physically. So while Shannan would go on these conferences and business trips and workshops and learning things with her business, Chris would stay at home and take care of the kids. And she was so vocal about how much she appreciated Chris staying home and taking care of the kids while she was away. She really expressed her gratitude and love for Chris. And this really goes to show that while things can seem very different online and on camera, it really seemed like she was genuine when she meant that she felt like Chris really changed her life, and he was this beautiful and loving husband and a father. And to me, it kind of showed that there wasn't this violent nature in their relationship, because I feel like Shannan was a type of woman that was so strong in who she was that she wouldn't stand for violence. But like I said, things can appear very different online. After getting this job, their financial situation improved immensely. She was on an $80,000 salary, and having so many perks that came with the business, she was so happy. She promoted this lifestyle because she truly believed in it. She wasn't one of those people that just did it for the money. She really actually genuinely loved it, and she helped so many people through this, and this was her biggest reward. Like I said, she took care of the financial side of things. If a mortgage needed to be paid, she would tell Chris, hey, mortgage is due, let's pay the mortgage, let's do this, let's do that. Through home videos, it really portrays how happy this family was. The kids were happy. Shannan seemed really happy. Chris seemed like a great father. Shannan was such a great mum. She was so loving with her children, very protective of her little cubs. They were a very playful family. They just seemed like the perfect family. They were like the type of family that people pray for. Shannan just loved being a wife. She loved being a mother to these two beautiful, beautiful kids. She loved her home to be immaculate, very orderly. Her friends said that she had kind of an OCD where everything had to be perfect. If a task was started, it had to be completed. There was no, I'll do it later. She was just a very get it done type of person. She was a morning person. She woke up early, did her mum things, got the kids ready. She was just such a boss mum. She was doing great at her job. She was a great mother. She was a great wife. She had a great social life. She just knew how to balance her life. Chris had a job in the oil field. He was doing good in his job as well. And as a family at this point, they seemed like they were thriving. To make things even better in their family life, on the 8th of May in 2018, Shannan announced to Chris that she was pregnant with their third child, and it was going to be a little baby boy called Nichol Watts. Shannan was so excited. She put on this t-shirt saying, "Oops, we did it again," and that's how she was going to announce it to Chris. She had a camera ready to go to get a live reaction of Chris. However, when you watch the video, Chris doesn't really seem that excited. He doesn't really seem that happy. I honestly wonder truly what was going through his head in this moment.
We did it again. I like that shirt. Really?
Really?
That's awesome. So pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. It just says the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know. Just the test.
That's awesome.
So in early July, Shannan decides to take herself and the two girls to North Carolina to visit her parents as well as Chris's parents. This was going to be a 5-week trip. However, Chris was not going to join for the entire 5 weeks. He was just going to go for the last week, and I'm guessing maybe this is because of work. Celeste was 2.5 years old at this point, and she was an anaphylactic, really allergic to tree nuts. And before Shannan went, she confirmed with her mother-in-law that there were no nuts in the house. This was obviously a really young girl. She could find some nuts somewhere, stick them in her mouth, get a massive allergic reaction. You know, it was really bad. Shannan even carried an EpiPen as well in case of any accidents. Shannan specifically mentioned the nuts that Celeste was allergic to, and her mother said, "No, there's no nuts in the house. You're, you know, safe to stay here." Even though things were rocky between Shannan and her in-laws, she still wanted, obviously, her kids to have a great relationship with their grandparents. So when Shannan and her kids arrived to her in-laws' house, she realized that her mother-in-law wasn't being 100% truthful, because she found a bag of pistachio nuts in one of the shelves on the island of the kitchen. Shannan just took these nuts, threw them away. There was no real big massive argument that came out of this at this point. However, when it happened the second time, there was a massive argument. There was a day that her mother-in-law had went and bought a certain ice cream that contained nuts in it, and her mother-in-law actually gave an ice cream to one of Shannan's nieces. I think it was Bella as well, and Shannan saw that these kids were eating this ice cream that she knew 100% had nuts in them. Celeste was right there near the nut products. She could have just easily taken the ice cream out of her sister's hand or her cousin's hand and eaten it and had a massive allergic reaction to it. So Shannan saw this and was absolutely mortified. She took Cece away from the girls eating the ice cream, and she told Chris's mother that she did not appreciate this. This was extremely dangerous, and she just had this massive argument with Cindy. She asked Cindy, "Why would you even buy this in the first place? My child could die from this." She was so angry that she took the kids and left the house. I would be just as angry as well, because nut allergies are extremely harmful. Nut allergies are so harmful that even in planes, they used to give packets of peanuts and stuff like that, or like mixed nuts. However, they don't even do that anymore, because if a person on the plane has an allergy to nuts, even them just breathing in the particles of nuts could send their body into an anaphylactic shock and they could die from it. So, you know, this should outline how dangerous a nut allergy is. Cindy said that Shannan was completely overreacting, that this was a way of Celeste to learn that she could not have everything that she wanted. And this made Shannan even more angrier, because she was like, "How dare you put my child's life at risk just to teach her a lesson? This is not okay." And Shannan said that that was the last time that her kids would go to her grandparents' house. Shannan then called Chris and told him about what had just happened, and told Chris that he needed to call his parents and tell them that this was not okay. So Chris did that. However, Cindy was not remorseful at all. She did not take the allergies seriously. She just didn't seem like she thought that she did anything wrong. Shannan was so angry that she actually went and posted on Facebook about the situation. Now, maybe Shannan was trying to seek some validation, but she was really, really angry, as you can tell, and honestly, rightfully so. So a few days later, it was Cece's birthday, and Chris's parents did not attend because they had come to know about the Facebook post, and they thought that it was completely rude and completely, directed at them, and they were really angry, and they didn't attend their own grandkids' birthday. And I'm sorry, this also sets the tone, because no matter what's going on between you and the mother of your grandkids, you still go. You're there celebrating the life of your grandkids. And I just thought it was kind of mean towards the grandchild to not go. Shannan was convinced that Chris's mother was trying to kill little Cece. Then at the end of July, Chris joins his family in North Carolina. They went to the beach, and Frankie, Shannan's brother, noticed that Chris was kind of acting a little standoffish, wasn't his normal self. He was a bit distant, but they kind of just put it down as things were a bit tense after the whole nut allergy situation. Even Shannan noticed that he was being very distant. She initiated sex. However, he declined it, and she was getting really worried at this point. It's been 5 weeks or 4 weeks without Chris, and he's been without his wife. And she thought that he would kind of jump on her any chance that he got, but he didn't. She started getting suspicion that if he's not having sex with me, then he could be getting it from somewhere else. And this also ties up with her feelings of him being distant throughout the entire North Carolina trip. While she was there, and even before she had left to go to North Carolina, Chris was becoming seemingly distant. So everything that seemed so perfect started to kind of crumble a little bit. And Shannan was getting really worried as to why he was so distant. But she kind of thought, maybe it was just a little rough patch and it was all going to be okay, especially after the distance that the couple had while she was in North Carolina and he was back at home. She asked Chris if, everything was okay, if he's cheating on her or something, if there's someone else, and Chris obviously denied it. Even Chris's parents asked Chris if there was someone else in the picture, because when he went to visit his parents, he was texting a lot, and that wasn't really him. He usually wasn't always on his phone. Shannan was still really angry about this nut allergy situation and told Chris to not speak to his family because they were just not taking it seriously and they were not apologetic at all. And she was even angrier because they hadn't attended Cece's birthday. She didn't want Cece and Bella to see the grandparents. And Chris, because of this, was really stuck in the middle. He really wanted to see his parents and he wanted his kids to see his parents. And, this kind of drove a bigger wedge between Shannan and Chris because there was just so much tension. However, this wedge between them and the standoffish behavior and the declining sex and distant behavior was not just because of the nut allergy situation. Shannan's suspicions would actually be true. Chris was cheating on Shannan with a co-worker that he had met in June of 2018. Her name was Nichol Kessigner, and he had met her at work. They would bump into each other a lot. In the beginning, it was a strictly professional friendship or relationship, and there was nothing really that came of it in the very early stages. However, as they started texting more and more, Chris started to gain feelings for Nichol and vice versa. And then this professional relationship escalated into romance. Chris had lied to Nichol, saying that he was getting separated from his wife and that they were selling the house and that Shannan had already called the realtor. And he told Nichol that he had 2 kids with Shannan, however, did not mention that Shannan was pregnant with their 3rd child. He even showed Nichol a picture of his 2 girls. And it makes sense as to why he was so distant with Shannan from the month of June onwards, and it makes sense as to why he wasn't excited about the third child coming in, because it would have made it harder for him to leave Shannan to pursue Nichol. And another thing to note, the unborn baby's name was set as Nichol Watts, which is eerily similar to Nichol. I don't know if that was just a coincidence. Chris said that it was just because Shannan liked the name, but I don't know, I feel like there's a bit more towards that. In early July, that is when the relationship with Nichol became a physical one, and this would have been around the time that Shannan and the kids were in North Carolina. Chris said that this time away from his family allowed Nichol and his relationship become even stronger and closer. He said that he was falling hard and fast for Nichol and would often stay at her house while his family was in North Carolina. He would only go home to kind of eat, work out, get showered, get changed, and then he would go to Nichol's place to stay the night. And Shannan obviously had absolutely no idea that he wasn't at home, that he was spending nights and nights and nights at this woman's house. And he said that when he was with Nichol, he felt like a blinder was in front of his eyes, and all he wanted at that moment was her. He would text Nichol from his work phone so that Shannan couldn't see them, and he even had a secret app that was actually a storage device. Once you enter a passcode, it takes you to this storage device where you can hide text messages and pictures that you don't want anyone else to see. So anyone looking at it would think it was a calculator app. Chris even deleted his Facebook account because he was scared that Nichol would find out that Shannan was pregnant, and because Nichol had told her friends about Chris, he was afraid that her friends would go stalk him on social media and find out that Shannan was pregnant and that they were still together. He would also pay for things with gift cards and cash and never use his credit card because, like I said, Shannan was taking care of the finance side of things, and she would see and she would grow to be suspicious as to why he's spending money going out quite a lot while his family's away. Like I said, Shannan knew that he was being distant, and she was willing to fix things. She was willing to work on things. She even said we should go to counseling, but it just seemed so one-sided. You know, she was like, how can things go from being so perfect to him just being so distant all of a sudden and being so different, and things were just not the same between them anymore. And when she was in North Carolina with the kids before Chris had joined them, she would try to call him. He wouldn't answer a lot of the times, wouldn't really call her back, seemed very distant, wouldn't really FaceTime the kids, even though the kids would always ask for their dad. There was this one day where Chris spent the night at Nichol's house, and Shannan was trying to call Chris because the kids wanted to talk to him and he wasn't answering. And when he finally answered, Shannan was furious, you know, so angry, saying, why are you not calling me? Why are you not calling the kids? Why are you not answering your phone? You know, you've been so distant. What's going on? And at this point, you know, he was still at Nichol's house, so he left Nichol's house to go back home because obviously if the kids were to FaceTime him, he would have to be home because then Shannan would know that he was actually not at home and spent the night elsewhere. Shannan confided in her friends about the downfall of the relationship with Chris. She even expressed that she suspected him of cheating, and the friends were like, there's no way, you know, he's such a nice man, he would never cheat. And she was like, no, I feel like, you know, something's going on that I don't know about. She was so upset, she would cry herself to sleep a lot of the nights. She was really trying to just work things out with Chris, but he just didn't seem like he was interested in fixing things anymore. Chris and Nichol's relationship just became stronger. They would go vacationing together, went places together, dates. It was like a full-on relationship. He says that when he was with Nichol, he was just in this bubble of the honeymoon phase. He said that Nichol would actually want to know his opinions and listen to him, whereas with Shannan, he felt like he was not being heard. And he said that with Nichol, he felt more wanted and more in control. And, you know, they were kind of making decisions together, and he just thought that Nichol was a great listener. He was falling so hard and fast for her that he even Googled when to say I love you to someone. That says it all. He was falling for her. Even before he left to go to North Carolina to meet his family, he wrote a love letter or a love card to Nichol saying how wonderful she is. And after that, you know, he went and joined his family in North Carolina. It was quite sick as to how he could just be joining his family, knowing what he's been doing for the past 4 weeks. A little while after the family had arrived back to Colorado, Shannan said to Chris that you should probably call your family because, you know, you are really upset about it, smooth things over with them, hash it out. So he did call them, and he actually expressed to his parents that he didn't think that things were going to be working out with Shannan anymore. And 2 days after he had expressed this to his family, he told Shannan that things were not going to work out between them. Chris had told Shannan that they weren't compatible anymore and that he didn't really want to have this baby, that he was okay with just having Celeste and Bella, and he was scared to have a third child as well. Shannan was completely blindsided by this. You know, she thought that he was so excited to have a third child, especially because the third child was going to be a boy. And Shannan said, you know, this is really confusing because you seemed like you did want to have another baby. And he said that he thought that another baby would change his mind about the relationship with Shannan, but it didn't. And then he changed his tune, saying that he would try and work out the marriage, but then he again said no to couples counseling. You know, he wasn't affectionate with her anymore either. She was just so upset after Chris had said this. She couldn't believe it. She had texted her friends saying that this is what Chris had just said. So after this chat saying that he would try and work things out, Shannan seemed okay about it, and Shannan seemed hopeful. You know, she said that things were okay for now. So 2 days after this conversation, Shannan had to attend a business conference. The morning before she left, Chris had given her a burst of affection. You know, they were kind of holding each other and being affectionate. And this made Shannan feel warm and hopeful that things were getting back on track. However, I feel like this would be Chris's way of saying his final goodbye to Shannan. On the 10th of August, Shannan was picked up by her friend Nicole Atkinson at around 4:30 a.m. to get to the airport to go to Arizona for a business training program. Shannan would be gone for 3 days, so it would be the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Chris was going to look after the kids while Shannan was gone. That morning before Shannan left, she wrote this beautiful, heartfelt letter to Chris saying, you know, thank you for letting me hold you, which is so sick. Like, you should never have to thank your partner for letting them hold you. You know, it just goes to show how much she loved him still and wanted things to work. And she wrote a bunch of beautiful things and how amazing he is. And, you know, thank you for looking after our kids and all this stuff. And it was just so sweet, and it's just so sickening to think that her life was going to be taken by this man a few days later. However, when Shannan was on this business trip to Arizona, Chris and her barely talked. Once again, Chris went back to being really distant, barely talking to her. At one point, she even called him, but he just started working out while he's on the phone with her, and his attention was divided. So she was like, okay, fine, go and work out. She was only on the phone for a couple of minutes, when usually they would be on the phone for at least half an hour. She was just so upset because she's like, that is so strange. Why would you do that? You know, he obviously doesn't want to talk to me. She was so upset in these few days. She was so distraught. She was confiding in her friends, asking for advice. She was devastated that Chris was again becoming very distant. She was upset that he didn't even bother to call or bother to talk to her. They would usually like share a lot of pictures together while she was on these business trips, and a lot of text messages sent back and forth, but there was really not much of that. You know, she's 15 weeks pregnant. You would think that you would be checking in on your wife, making sure she's okay, but there was nothing. The whole weekend, like I said, she was a mess. She just didn't think that Chris was putting any effort in at all. However, there was one image that Chris did send, and it was a picture of this Barbie doll that the kids had laid on these pillows, on the cushions. The Barbie doll was covered head to toe with this like white tissue paper. It was really, really odd. He said, you know, something about the kids doing this, and Shannan even shared it on her Facebook, and they kind of had a bit of a laugh about it. But this would be so sick, because, you know, once I go into the details about it, you would know that it was eerily similar to the day of the murders. For Chris, this was just a regular weekend. He looked after the kids. He took them to a birthday party. He took them out to Target for shopping. He got pizza with the kids. However, on one of the days, Chris told Shannan that he was attending a sporting event. He got a babysitter for the kids and off he went to this game. He said that he was going with a friend, but he obviously did not go with a friend. He went with his mistress, Nichol. After the game, they went to a bar and grill, and Shannan was a little suspicious because he got home at 10:30 p.m., which is quite late to be out for dinner. They had a ring bell and it showed when people would come in and out of the home, and she saw on the notification that Chris had entered the house at 10:30 p.m. and she was really suspicious as to where he was and why he was out for so long. You know, it was just this instinct, this very strong instinct that she had. And so she checked their bank account and it said that he had spent $67. And she was like, why was his meal so expensive? And she asked her friends, why do you think it was so expensive? And the friends were like, oh, he could have, like, you know, treated himself to a couple of beers, you know, he probably had a lot of food, like it's nothing to really worry about. But her instincts were screaming at her. You know, when a woman knows something's off, she knows, and she will know how to get the answers. So she called Chris and asked him, what did you order? And he said, I just ordered some salmon and beer. And then Shannan had an idea to check online to see how much this was. So she went online to the bar and grill's menu and she checked the salmon and the price of the beer, and it came to like $30 something. So she's like, where's the other $37? This just furthered her suspicions. And at this point, Chris is becoming quite lousy with his trace. You know, he's paying with his credit card. You know, it's like he's just ready to leave. He's completely checked out with his relationship with Shannan, and he's like, yeah, I want to leave. And in this footage, you can see that Chris and Nichol stopped at a gas station to purchase a couple of things before Chris went home at, like I said, 10:30 p.m. So just before Shannan arrived back home from her trip, Nichol and Chris FaceTimed for 111 minutes. What were they talking about for so long? So on the 13th of August, Shannan arrives home just before 2 a.m. She is seen exiting the car, Nicole Atkinson's car, and she is seen walking up to the door, and she enters, she places her bag downstairs and she goes upstairs to their bedroom. She changes and she gets in the bed with Chris. At this time, you know, she starts touching her husband, initiating sex. And Chris said that this felt like a test. This felt like Shannan knew something, because, you know, he obviously didn't use any gift cards at this bar and grill. He knew that she was suspecting him of cheating. However, they did end up having sex. But for Chris, this was a strange feeling. It was a foreign feeling having sex with Shannan. And he said that this was kind of a trigger for him, saying that it felt like he was cheating on Nichol, and it was just this irking feeling at the back of his head that he needed to talk to Shannan and tell her that this marriage was not going to work. After they had had sex, they fell asleep. And in the early hours of the morning, Chris wakes up and he's getting ready for work. He wakes up Shannan as well and says that they needed to talk. He got on top of her to talk. Why would you need to get on top of her to have a chat? This was really strange. He again said that they were not compatible, that this was not going to work anymore. He said to put the house on sale and cancel a trip that the couple had planned on going to. Shannan was so upset. Chris kind of seemed confused because at one point he's like, yes, I want to be together. Then he's like, I don't want to be together. And he just seemed really confused with what he wanted. Then he said, I don't want to be with you. Then he said, let's move away from here. Let's go somewhere else. Possibly thinking of ending things with Nichol and just focusing on his family, because maybe he was thinking Nichol was a distraction. He's just going back and forth with what he wanted. Shannan again was really confused because she was like, we had sex last night. What was that? Why would you do that with me if you're feeling this way? And then he goes, I just don't love you anymore. And Shannan now was furious. She's like, get off me. You're hurting me. You're hurting the baby. Get off me right now. You're never going to see the kids again. How dare you? She's like, I knew there was someone else. I knew there was someone else. And Chris still did not admit that there was someone else. At this point, Chris thought that if he went to work and came back, he was expecting that the kids and Shannan were not going to be home, that she would have left, or that he was not going to be allowed in the home. Shannan kept saying, you're never going to see the kids again. You're never going to see the kids again. And this made Chris really angry and triggered. And then he puts his hands around Shannan and starts to strangle her. The worst part of this whole thing is that Shannan did not fight back because she truly believed that Chris was going to let go, that there was no way he was going to go to the extent of killing her. It's also important to note that before Chris had done this, he wondered to himself whether he knew or not that he was going to do this to her before they had the conversation. So this indicates to me that he had that in his head, that he was going to do this to her. As he's strangling her, he said he was so full of rage that he could not let go. He could not control his actions. He said that he bottled up so much over the years that he was just taking it all out on her. He said that he was so angry in that moment that he would take it out on anyone or anything that came in front of him, which is so psychotic. He strangled her to the point where she eventually died. While Shannan was laid face down on their bed, Chris is taking off the bed sheets to wrap her body in. And at that moment, Bella walks in and sees her mother face down on the bed. And she asks her dad, what's happened to Mummy? What's wrong with her? Chris just said, Mummy isn't feeling good. And while Bella is there, he takes Shannan's body and takes her down the stairs. And at one point, he lost his grip. And then he drags Shannan's body down the stairs while Bella is following Chris, dragging her mother's body down. And at this point, Bella is crying. She's scared. She knows something is wrong with her mother. She kept saying, what are you doing with Mummy? What are you doing with Mummy? Chris then took off Shannan's ring and placed it on the counter of their bed in their bedroom. He obviously wanted to make it look like she wanted to divorce him. He took her phone, threw it on the couch, and threw away the therapy books that Shannan wanted him to read. Then he backs up his truck at 5:27 a.m. He then picks up Shannan's body and places it in the back passenger side of his truck on the floor, dumps her like some object that he's packing in his truck. He covered her head and her feet with trash bags and also with the bed sheets. Then he also puts a gas can in the truck as well. And at this time, while he's doing this, Cece wakes up. She gets out of bed and the two girls kind of walk around the house for a bit and picks up his two girls while Chris gets his lunchbox. The fact that he even got his lunchbox ready to act like this was a normal day for him goes to show that he knew he was about to also kill his kids and go off to work as usual. If this isn't one of the most evil people you've ever seen, I don't know what is. And picks up his two girls and puts them in the back of the truck as well. The girls had their blankets with them. To think that their mother's lifeless body was just under them as they sat on the seats above is so sickening and so sad. The girls kept asking if Mum was okay and Chris kept saying she'll be fine. she'll be fine. At this point, Chris said that he even contemplated taking his own life, and he says that he felt like he didn't deserve to live. I really doubt that because of what happens next. He drives out to a field 45 minutes away from the family home in the outskirts of Frederick City. He says the whole time he was kind of on autopilot while he was driving. He was really nervous. He was shaking. He said the whole trip he wasn't really thinking. He says that he hopes he wasn't coherent enough to know that he was going to kill his kids when he reached the site. This site was a site that Chris had a job at on that morning. He had to go out there to fix an oil spill on this site, and the odd thing is the night before, his boss said that there's an oil spill at this site. Chris was the first one to put his hand up and say, I'll attend the site, all good, don't worry about it. And one of the guys was like, oh, I'll come with you. And then he was like, no, there's no point for both of us to be out there together. I'll just go and fix it. That was really odd. Why was he saying I want to be out there on my own in this entire field all by himself to fix something? It just didn't seem right. Was this just a pure coincidence, or was it that he was planning this, or was it just that he thought this site was a perfect place to dispose the bodies? In the car, Bella and Cece were holding each other throughout the drive, and they were drifting in and out of sleep. When Chris got to the site, he was familiar with this site because he had already done some jobs there. It was this huge field with 2 large oil tanks in the middle of it. Chris takes the body of Shannan, and the kids are like, what are you doing with Mummy? And Chris just said, oh, it's all good, it's fine. And he takes her body and places her on the ground near where he was planning on burying her. After he puts Shannan's body on the ground, he walks back to his truck and he kills little Cece first. Just a trigger warning, this is very upsetting. While Bella is sitting next to Cece, Chris grabs one of the kids' blankets and puts it over little Cece's head. Then he puts his hand over her nose and mouth and pushes her into the seat where he smothers her. And being unable to breathe, she passes away. I wonder what poor little Cece was thinking, like, why is my dad harming me? What's happening? I can't even begin to imagine the fear that she would have had. How evil Chris was to do something like this, to take his own daughter's life, to have that 45-minute drive out there. He had so much time to think about what he was going to do or what he wanted to do. Bella is sitting right next to Cece when this is happening to her, and she's watching over her little sister get smothered to death by their own father. Even for Bella, this would have been so scary. So when Chris realizes that Cece is now dead, he carries her up the stairs to the top of the oil tank, and there was a little hatch, and he opened that and dumps her body in the oil tank. And he closes the hatch and walks back downstairs and does exactly the same thing to Bella. Bella asked her dad before he did it, is the same thing that happened to Cece going to happen to me? And then he put the blanket over her head, and the last words that she uttered were, "Daddy, no." Bella struggled, she fought, she tried to get him off her, but he was way too overpowering. Her head was moving back and forth, she was grunting, she was struggling. She even bit her tongue so many times against the pressure of her dad trying to fight him off. And eventually she passed away. And then once he realized that Bella too had passed away, he carried her up to the second oil tank, opened the hatch, and dumped her body in the oil tank. He says that he had to maneuver her body to get her in. It baffles me because Shannan threatened Chris, saying that you're not going to see your kids again. But then he goes and kills them, confirming that he will never ever see them again. It makes me feel like he didn't kill her because she said you're never going to see the kids again. It makes me feel that he just wanted them gone. He wanted the burden of a family gone so that he could spend his life with Nichol without having a family to support or look after. And then he went back down to where Shannan's body was, dug a shallow grave and placed her body in there and covered it up. Once he did this, Chris went to work. He acted completely normal at work. People did attend this oil field site. to do a bit of work, and no one noticed anything wrong, no one noticed anything suspicious. But also that same day he unenrolled his kids from school, and he also called the realtor to sell the house. That is just sickening. It's sickening to me that he wasn't even thinking about, oh my God, what have I done? He was like, oh, I need to unenroll the kids, and oh, I need to contact the realtor to sell the house. What? Are you kidding me? So while Chris is having a seemingly normal day at work, one of Shannan's best friends, Nichol Atkinson, is trying to get a hold of Shannan, along with some of Shannan's other friends. They're messaging her, they're trying to call her, and she is not answering. And this is so strange for Shannan, because Shannan, her job was to be on her phone all the time, social media, constantly engaging with people online, but she was not answering anyone's calls or anyone's text messages. And these are people that she spoke to every single day. So for her to not have one text or one piece of communication out there was so strange. And to make matters even worse and even more suspicious, Shannan would post on her Facebook every single day between 5, 6, 7 a.m. and there was no activity on her Facebook page. So because Nichol was really worried about her friend, she took one of her sons and drove to Chris and Shannan's house. And she parked up and she walked up to the front door to go and knock. But she notices Shannan's flip-flops that she wore absolutely everywhere. She thought this was odd, because if Shannan had left the house, why are her shoes that she wore every day still in the front? At this point she's thinking, okay, so Shannan's inside, what's going on? Why isn't she answering? Nichol knocked, she rang the doorbell to check for any movement inside the house, anything. There was nothing. It was radio silent. And she even tried the house code, because Nichol did have the house code, but when she opened the door, the latch from inside was still on, and it was never usually latched. The only time it was ever latched was when they were inside the house, because Cece was at an age where she could open the front door and leave. So she's yelling through the door while the latch is still on and no one's answering. So this indicated that obviously whoever exited the house last did not go through the front door. They would have gone through the garage. Nichol was like, okay, let's check to see if Shannan's car is in the garage. And there was a little window thing on top of the garage, and she got her son to have a look. Shannan's car was still in the garage. So at this point she's questioning, like, how did Shannan even leave? Why is her car there and she's not answering the door? Is everyone okay? What's going on? Did someone pick her up? So at around 12:30 p.m. she calls Chris and says, where's your wife? Why isn't she answering our calls and text messages? She's not answering the door. There's no movement. There's nothing. What's going on? And also Nichol says that her car's there, but she's not at home. Where is she? And Chris, it is just so disgusting. But he says, oh, Shannan's at a play date. Then she's like, at a play date without her car? There needs to be car seats for 2 kids. Who would have picked her up that had 3 car seats in the back? Then Chris says, oh, we're separating, and pulls out the separation card. And Nichol says, I don't care what's going on in your personal life. I don't care if you're separating, but where is your wife? Where is she? And then he says, I'll try to contact her, and then hung up the phone. Nichol knew that Shannan had a doctor's appointment that day. So she thought, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor's office and see if Shannan turned up to her appointment, because she would never miss an appointment, especially because she's pregnant. So she drove to the doctor's office, and they said that Shannan had not turned up to her doctor's appointment that day. Then she texted Shannan again and told her, I'm coming by your house again, hoping, just for a reply or something. She also called the cops, because at this point she is so worried. Her not attending her appointment, she's like, nah, something is wrong.
County Communications, this is Stacey. Hi, Stacey. My name's Nicole, and I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. I dropped her off at her house at 2 in the morning last night because we were out of town together, and she's pregnant. And I haven't been able to get a hold of her this morning, and I've gone to her house, and her car's there, but she won't answer the door, she won't answer phone calls, she won't answer text messages, and I'm just really, really concerned. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning, and she didn't go to it, and I don't know what to do. I've called him and talked to him, and he said that she went on a play date with her other 2 daughters, but like, if she went on a play date, they're both in car seats. Why would she not take her car? And then I said, like, Chris, can you just come home and check to make sure she's okay? Because the shoes she wears every single day are right inside her door. And he was like, yeah, I'll be there in 3 minutes. Well, that was 45 minutes ago. And I called him and asked him again, can you please come home? And he's like, I'm 45 minutes out. I mean, there's no movement in the house whatsoever. And Nichol will have an officer come out that way as soon as we can.
She's honestly such a great friend. You know, her instincts were so right. She saw her flip-flop. She knew that she wouldn't just leave her car like that. She was just such a great observer. Nichol gets to the house and she meets the police there, and they're kind of searching around looking for any movement in the house. And you know, the police is kind of asking a few questions. Maybe there's a reasonable explanation for this. Then Chris comes home at 1:30 p.m. and he looks quite normal. You know, he's shaking the cop's hand and he's just kind of normal. And notice that he goes through his garage door. How is it that he knew that the latch would have been on if the kids and Shannan would have left the house after Chris had left to go to work? So in the video, Chris is just talking so normally to the cops, as if he's talking about a basketball game that was on the night before.
Did he tell you anything about leaving, moving out?
Not moving out. I mean, the last time I talked to her was this morning. She said she's going to take the kids to a friend's house, and she asked where she was going to be. And then I've texted her today and never heard anything. But cars here. Cars here. Unless somebody came and picked her up. But the people that I know, nobody's heard from her, nobody's seen her.
It was so eerie, like no bit of concern either. He was just so nonchalant and too calm for your family who's missing. Like, you've got cops at your house and you are just walking around as if everything is normal. The cops are searching the house, you know, Nichol, her son, Chris is like looking over. Chris is trying to pretend to walk from this room to that room. Then he comes out with the ring that he planted. He's got the ring on his hand saying, found this, she's gone, she's left me. That's the explanation for all this. She's gone, that's why her ring is here. But her meds were still there, her car was still there, everything was still there. Anything that she would have taken if she left was still there. There was no rummaging, everything was, you know, in its order, no sign of break and entry, nothing like that. So this was weird. Then Nichol's son found her phone. It was like shoved in the couch cushions. Like, she wouldn't just leave her phone like that. And that's when they really started panicking, because they were like, okay, this is her lifeline. Like, she needs her phone, but it was at home. And even the kids' medications, the EpiPen, everything was in her bag still. Her bag was still in the house, you know, and Nichol, you can see her like freaking out a little bit. Nichol said that it felt really weird in the house. You know, there were bed sheets stripped off the beds, and she's like, that's weird. Because remember, like I said, once Shannan started a task, she would do it until she finished. Or she wouldn't start if she had to go out somewhere. She would do it after she came home. So while the police are searching, the neighbor finds out that Shannan and the kids are missing. And he comes out and says, I have, you know, CCTV footage. Do you want to come in and have a look and see if there's any weird activity, if someone's come in the house or when they've left or anything like that? So they go to the house and Chris looks so nervous. He's moving a lot. He's looking down at his phone, texting a lot. You can see the nervousness radiating from his body. He's looking away from the screen while they're showing the footage. You know, you would think if your family's missing, your eyes would be locked on that screen to just find any indication of something, any piece of information. But he was just texting while the footage is playing, and, you know, talking a lot to the neighbor and the police, and just kind of trying to spark up like a normal conversation. And you can just tell his body is so like in a nervous state, in a panicky state. And you can see the neighbor look at Chris and see that he's not acting right, that he is being very suspicious. You can see the neighbor looking over, observing Chris's body language. And, you know, the fact that he's talking so much, because Chris wasn't known to talk that much. And apparently he was like petting the dog.
I just personally thought the way he was acting was a little strange. As a father, like, my eyes would have never left that screen.
And even on Shannan's phone, there were messages from Chris that morning saying, hey, can you let me know where you are? You know, what's going on? Answer my calls, blah, blah, blah. Making it seem as if Chris is looking for Shannan when he knows what's happened to her. He knows what he's done. And he's trying to make it to seem as if he's so concerned, because he knew once her phone was found that there would need to be calls and messages from him to make it look like he didn't know where she was and that he was worried about her and their kids. There were lots of people messaging Chris at this time, you know, saying like, we're thinking of you, we're praying, you know, we're going to do everything we can to find your kids and your wife. It's just sick. All of it is just so sick. The fact that Chris is like, yeah, praying, you know, pray for us, pray that they're found safe, and you know, him sending those messages to Shannan, it was disgusting, so evil. All he cared about was himself and how he would look. Even though Shannan could have just up and left her whole life, it was highly unlikely. So the forensics team came to do some forensic investigation at the home. And there were even canine dogs brought in to pick up any scents. The press came to report on this, just to send out a message to let people know if anyone's seen them to please, you know, say something. And then this is when Chris was interviewed, and it was the most cold-hearted interview I have seen in a long time. He was kind of holding himself like this, sort of in a self-soothing manner, just to comfort himself. But then he's talking about his kids in the past tense.
Chris talked about how he and his wife had had an emotional conversation right before she went missing, which I thought was strange.
I left around 5:15. She was still here. Like, I had texted Shannan a few times that day, called her, say, you know, but she never got back to me, but she wasn't getting back to any of her people as well. And then walked in the house and nothing was vanished. Nothing was here. I mean, she wasn't here. The kids weren't here. Nope, nobody was here.
And so, how many times did you try calling her?
I called her 3 times, texted her about 3 times, but when her friend showed up, that's what it was like, it registered like, all right, this isn't right. I mean, right now, I don't even want to just like throw anything out there. Like, I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. But I mean, could she just taken off? I don't know. But if somebody has her and they're not safe, like, I want them back now. Last night, I had every light in the house on. I was hoping that I would just ran over by the kids running in the door and just like barrel rushing me, but it didn't happen. And it was just a traumatic night trying to be here. My kids are my life. I mean, those smiles light up my life. And just like, I mean, last night, like during like, you know, when they usually eat dinner, it was just like, I miss them. Like, I mean, I miss telling them, hey, you got to eat that or you're not going to get your dessert, you know, and just like, you're not going to get your snack after. I miss that. Like, I miss them, you know, cuddle up on their couches. And it was just like, you know, it was tearing me apart last night. It was, that's why last night was just horrible. I couldn't do it. I want everybody to just come home. Like, wherever they're at, come home. That's what I want. I just want them back. I just want them to come back. And if they're not safe right now, that's what's tearing me apart. Because if they are safe, they're coming back. But if they're not, this has got to stop. Like, somebody has to come forward.
And he's also laughing and just giggling, and there's no emotion, there's no crying, there's no panic, there's no sadness, nothing in his eyes. He's just talking so casually. He seemed cold and very calculated in what he was saying, and no real like hysteria like normal people would be. This interview though was the icing on the cake. It was so bizarre. There was no evidence that was found at the home, but when the police saw the interview that Chris had done in the media, they knew something was wrong. They all kind of just looked at each other like, oh my God, he knows something. So that is when the police decided to conduct a recorded interview with Chris, and that would be followed by a polygraph test the next morning. Usually, you know, family members are interviewed to just kind of rule them out, but the cops were very suspicious of him. The police used heavy manipulation tactics to get Chris to admit. They acted as if they were on his side, that they were trying to help him out. It seemed like the cops were trying to be very supportive, but they were only doing this because they were trying to do anything they could to get him to spill.
The day she goes missing is the day that you guys have marital discord.
So you can understand what I'm thinking about you. Yeah, it makes me sick to my stomach, honestly. Like, this is something that I would never do. Are you telling me the truth? I'm telling you the absolute truth. Why should I believe you? Because I'm a very trustworthy person.
The police even went as far as showing Chris a picture of his two girls, and he didn't budge. You know, he wasn't concerned in any way. And also he says in the past tense that Bella or Celeste loved those shoes and dress.
Celeste loved those shoes, even though they were winter shoes. But she loved those shoes. She always loved those shoes. And Bella, she loved that dress. She loved those flip-flops. She was a girly girl.
Even in between the interview breaks, Chris would pick up his phone and look at, you know, videos and pictures of his kids. It was so crazy how easy it was for Chris to lie. The cops asked him about infidelity just to see if, you know, maybe infidelity played a part of this. Chris just tries to come up with a story, comes across as a really good guy.
So I need to ask you about your marriage and infidelity. Sure. Okay, tell me about it. I have never cheated on my wife. Okay. And I fully suspect she has never done that to me. Oh, okay. I fully expect if we ever thought about straying another way, that we would tell each other before it happens. I think that sounds ridiculous. I gotta ask, what's her name? I don't have another one. You sure? I'm sure. Okay.
He asks police questions to strike, it's like he's just trying to strike up a normal conversation just to kind of seem cool and calm and everything's all good and, you know, I just want to find my family and that's it. And, you know, he was trying to get the police to see from his point of view and he was laughing and carrying on and it was all just very, very strange. The police even were like, this guy is showing no emotion. He's just acting so normal. He doesn't seem hysterical. He doesn't seem like he's desperate to find his family, you know. He's just so normal. The female investigator says that she's going to conduct a polygraph test on him. So Chris leaves for the night, and through the night, the investigators find his phone records. This changed everything. This is where it became clear to the investigators that Chris was having an affair with someone. They found texts, they found pictures, they found everything. And this really changed the course of the investigation because now they knew, they had proof that he was cheating, that he did have a mistress, and this could indicate a motive. And now that they knew this woman, they actually interviewed Nichol. She was so unfazed in the interview. She seemed so normal.
Did you ever say anything to him about
Never.
Anything about his kids being a problem? Anything about his wife being a problem?
Never. This shocked me just as much as I think it shocked the rest of the world.
She lied and said that she didn't know Chris was still married, when in fact she had searched up on her computer, man I'm having an affair with says he'll leave his wife. That indicates that she knew he was still married. And she was looking up wedding dresses for 2 hours on the computer a little before the murders. Why was she searching up wedding dresses? You know, she says that they weren't serious together, that she had just met him. So if you're not serious, why are you looking at wedding dresses? It just didn't make sense. And she also searched up marrying your mistress. So she knew that she was a mistress. She also had no alibi for the time Shannan and the kids were murdered. However, it was early in the day, so, you know, she could have been sleeping or getting ready for work, you know, just the normal thing that people do at 5 in the morning. However, she could also have been called by Chris to help, because later on it came out that her phone actually pinged near a cell tower near Chris's house. So what was that about? Her house was 25 minutes away from the Watts home. So how did her cell phone ping near Chris's house? Apparently she also deleted messages on her phone, which was really strange. The cops actually knew that she deleted things off her phone. And then it was also found in her search history. Can cops find deleted messages? So that was really suspicious. She even tried to destroy her SIM card. Why are you doing that if you're not involved? Unless she just wanted all traces of herself out of this picture. But things are not adding up here. Then she also looks up a potential book deal. Specifically, she looked up Amber Fry book deal, which is the mistress of another similar case to this one. She was trying to get some money out of this. So the next day, on the day of the polygraph test, Chris goes to pick up his dad from the airport. His dad came from North Carolina to, support his child in finding his wife and kids. Chris said that he knew this was the last time he was going to see his father in the outside world. So Chris takes his dad to the station where the polygraph test was going to be conducted, and his father is kept in a separate room to Chris. The female investor comes in at around 11 a.m. and starts the test, and she is so good. She's so manipulative. She's like, it's going to be really stupid of you to lie on this test. Like, it would be so dumb. Like, we are going to find out the truth today.
There's actually only 2 ways you can fail a polygraph, okay? First way would be if you fail to follow my instructions. The second way would be if you choose to lie to me. Obviously, my wheels are turning in my head, but at the same time, I didn't want to give him any indication that I knew about the affair. I hope that, if you did have something to do with their disappearance, it would be really stupid for you to come in and take a polygraph today. Exactly. Right? Like, it would be really dumb. Like, you should not be here right now sitting in this chair if you had anything to do with Shannan and the little girl's disappearance, okay? And the coolest thing about this is right now, there's only one person in this room that knows what the truth is. And in about 5 minutes, there's going to be 2 of us.
And remember, at this point, Chris doesn't know that the police know about Nichol. So the investigator has to be very careful with how she words things. She doesn't want to say, we know you've got a mistress, because he could just shut down and not talk, and, then everything would just be for no reason. So she's very careful and very technical with how she's talking. She was very good with getting into his mind and coming across as, yeah, we're going to find out. This is cool. This is good. We need this. We need to know.
Did you physically cause Shannan's disappearance?
No.
Are you lying about the last time you saw Shannan?
No.
Do you know where Shannan is now?
No.
So after the test, the investigators came back and said, you failed every single question.
Right, Graham, in here, because we want to talk to you about the results, okay?
Sure.
When I walked back in the room with Special Agent Coder, my attitude had completely changed on purpose. I was no longer Chris's friend. I was no longer this joyful investigator that's just here to administer this polygraph. Now I'm here for the truth.
And at this point now, he became the primary suspect. While he's being questioned, there are people at the oil field looking for any evidence. So now that the investigators knew that he knew something, the investigators went from calm to supportive tone to down to business. We need to know. To give an excuse as to why he's failed the polygraph test, he says, I cheated on Shannan.
I cheated on her. I'm not proud of it. So I don't want to get her involved in this. I don't want to ruin her life.
And that is when he comes to find out that the police already know about it and that they've already spoken to Nichol.
We knew all about Nikki. So we didn't need to ask you about her in the polygraph. We just didn't need to, because we knew, okay?
Admitting to cheating on his wife was like the least serious thing he could admit to. The police are smarter than that. They knew that he was involved. The investigators indicated that they knew more than what Chris was letting on, and Chris's mind was probably going wild at this point. So then the investigators use the victim blaming technique, because a lot of murderers, they often blame their victims. That is when the female investigator said, did Shannan do something to the kids?
Chris, did Shannan do something to them?
No, I don't know.
I'm serious.
I have no clue.
No, you would have known. They didn't leave the house. Did Shannan do something to them, and then did you feel like you had to do something to Shannan?
They were at the house when I left. They were there.
Maybe Shannan did it, and you felt compelled to fix this so Shannan didn't look bad. I feel like you cleaned up for her. But I don't know, you're not telling me that, so it makes me think the worst. Like, did you do that to all 3 of them?
I did not do anything to these kids.
They were hoping that this would lead to the absolute truth and lead to what was actually really happening or what had happened. And the thing with Chris is that he never thought of the story that the investigator had just laid out. He never thought that he could just blame Shannan. This was the light bulb moment for him. This was the moment he was like, this is a story that I can take and run with. I'm going to put all the blame on Shannan. Then he asks to speak to his dad.
Can I talk to my dad or something?
flew across the country.
At first, the investigators didn't want the father to come in because they knew that the father could say, don't say anymore, let's get lawyered up. And at that point, they could not get any confession out of Chris. But then they decided it would be a good idea to have the dad come in and maybe he could confess something to the dad. And it was all being recorded anyway. So his dad comes in and he puts the blame on Shannan. And when the dad was brought in, the police straight away went to the other room where the screens were and were watching the room where Chris and his father were.
Hey, Chris, we're going to let you have however much time you need, okay?
Sure. How much long anything, or just polygraph. Failed it. Just too much emotions. Stopping. They're not going to let me go. Is there any reason why they shouldn't? They know I had an affair. Anything else you won't tell me what's going on? I want to protect her. What? I want to protect her. She hurt him? Yeah. I freaked out and I hurt her. You hurt her? Probably your parents want her. When I was downstairs, they came back up. They were gone. Did she kill him? They're blue. She choked both of them to death. I freaked out in the champagne with her. She killed those who see him on. Choked them to death. That's rage. I'm
To blame someone that wasn't there to defend herself is just so sick and twisted, and it goes to show how much he was trying to save himself from going to jail. So after they heard Chris's confession, the investigators came back in and all they needed to know now was where the bodies were, and they also needed Chris to confess to killing his kids as well. They knew that Shannan could not have possibly done this. They did not believe for 1 second that she murdered her kids.
I don't know, Chris. I need to find your babies. That's the hard part. When you left, can you tell us where they're at?
They're gone. There's no bringing them back.
Well, where are they?
That's the first location I went to that day.
So then the cops bring out an image of the oil field and ask Chris to mark where the bodies were. So he marked with a pen where the bodies were, and they said to Chris, you know, are you sure that Shannan would have killed the kids? Because, you know, she would have been exhausted from this trip that she went on. She was pregnant. How on earth did she even have the energy to do such a thing? The female investigator even said, you know, we don't want Shannan to have a bad rap for something that she didn't even do. And then Chris just said, I didn't kill those kids. He was then arrested and taken to jail. At 11 p.m. that day, investigators found a patch of dirt that was disrupted. So they took a closer look and they removed the dirt, and that is where they found a sheet. And they realized that there were sheets missing from the house when they were searching the home. So they put 2 and 2 together and realized that this could well and truly be the sheet from the house. So when they uncovered this shallow grave, they found Shannan Watts' body just dumped. Like it just looked as if she was just plopped into this grave like an object, just you know, getting rid of something. The saddest part about this was that because it was so late, they couldn't look in the oil tanks for Bella and Celeste's bodies. Honestly, no one really believed that they were in the oil tanks. The first question was, how could he even fit the kids in the oil tanks? Like, the hatch was so small. They had to sadly leave Bella and Celeste in the oil tanks overnight after finding Shannan's body, so that they could come back in the light in the daytime so that they could see everything properly. When the next day came, the excavators came up to the oil tank and they had a look and they couldn't see the girls' bodies. However, one of the members of the team saw hair just around the hatch on the inside, and that's when they were like, okay, they're in there. Why he didn't bury all of them together is not known. Why put each kid in each tank? Everything just seems so thought out to me, you know? Just doesn't sound right. Like, at least put them together, you know? Why separate them? Cece's body was recovered first and the girl was still in her nightgown. The people who recovered their bodies, it was just so traumatic for them. It was so heartbreaking, and to keep their cool and to maintain their composure and do their job professionally and accurately. They just had to get on with it. Some of the investigators still cry to this day thinking about it. And then they recovered Bella's body as well in the second tank, and how could he do this was just a question on everyone's minds. Coroner's report showed that Shannan was strangled to death and Cece and Bella were smothered to death. There was no indication that the kids had been strangled. So Chris saying that she had strangled the kids was a lie. During the sentence, Chris pled guilty. He said that he didn't want his family and Shannan's family to go through the torture of a trial and, you know, retelling this horrific situation and again and presenting all these evidence. It would have just been an emotional torture for the families. So he pled guilty, but I don't believe that it was for the families. I totally believe that he was just trying to save face and is going to jail, and that was it. He didn't have to deal with anything else, anyone saying anything to him, or, you know, more of the media. He just wanted all of it to stop. The investigators were planning on like a 3-year trial. You know, they were getting a case together, all the evidence. So they were really shocked to hear that he had pled guilty and that was it. They felt like the story hadn't been told, that the kids and Shannan and, you know, her unborn child did not receive the justice that they deserved. The great thing about this case is that the court actually acknowledged Nico's life as well. Even though he was not born yet, they acknowledged him in Chris's sentencing. There was also a deal that if Chris did plead guilty, that he wouldn't face the death penalty. However, the court asked Shannan's parents, are you okay with him not facing the death penalty? To show such amazing character of Shannan's parents. Shannan's mother, she made such a powerful statement saying, he made a decision to take those lives. I don't want to be in a position to making a choice to take his. This is powerful. He was given 5 life sentences plus 84 years in jail. So life imprisonment
with no possibility of parole.
And he was also charged with the wrongful termination of a pregnancy. The investigators that interviewed him said that they really wanted to know what truly happened that night, but they didn't. No one knew. No one had any idea what truly happened because Chris didn't have a trial. He was just guilty and that was it. He was sentenced. Nothing came to light. Chris's parents believed that Shannan had killed the kids. Opinions were divided. Some people just believed that he killed Shannan and the kids. But some people believe that Shannan killed the kids. He didn't give a statement in court. He kind of had his head down the whole time. He only really cried when his mother spoke, and his mother's statement just sent shivers down my spine. She barely acknowledges Shannan. I felt like she was so insensitive to Shannan's parents. I feel like she wasn't upset about the murders and the lives being taken. She was more upset about her son going to jail forever. And it was easy for her to blame Shannan because they didn't even like Shannan. So she's sticking by her son, which it makes sense. You know, any mother would stick by her son. So like I said, the investigators felt like the story was not told and no one knew what the truth was. So then they went to his jail a little bit after he was incarcerated, and they conducted the interview that I spoke about in the beginning of this video. They conducted like a 4 or 5 hour interview, and this is where everything sort of comes out. He confesses to what he did, you know, just recounts the entire night of when the murders happened. He seemed emotional, but I don't know if he's just emotional because, you know, he's in jail forever. You know, he'll never go back to that life again. He'll never go and see his home again. He'll never hold his kids in his arms again. He will never be married again. He will never walk the earth as a free man ever again. People really thought that the kids were not alive while he was driving to the site. People believed that he had killed the kids at the house and loaded the bodies into the truck and drove them out to the site and disposed the bodies. So the investigators were really expecting Chris to say that he had killed the kids in the home, but they were shocked to hear that that was not the case. So in jail, Chris keeps a very low profile. jail. People sent him letters declaring their love for him, which is so sick and twisted and disgusting. There was this one woman who sent like a picture of her in a bikini to him. He replies to these letters when they're not about the case. It's sick because it's kind of like, you know, this fan mail, and it just like grinds my gears and it makes me so angry. In the Colorado jail, inmates threatened to kill him. They said to him that he should take his own life, that he's disgusting for what he did. He said that if he was alone for 1 second in the Colorado jail, someone would have killed him. The security had to lock down the jail just for Chris to walk in the hallways. Otherwise, he would have been attacked. The investigators asked him, why didn't he admit to killing his kids? Why did he put the blame on Shannan? And he says, I didn't want to admit to myself that I had done this, so how could I admit to others? You can make your own mind up whether you believe that or not. I think maybe when they first got married and had their first 2 kids, I don't think he could have ever done that, or it wouldn't have even been in his mind. But I feel like down the line when he met Nichol, he was capable of doing anything to run off in the sunset with her. So some of the theories are that he was jealous of Shannan's success, so he killed her. There was another theory that Nichol Kessigner was actually involved, but her dad is a part of the mafia or something, and he would never like tell on her because the dad would like kill him or something. I don't know. There's another theory that it was all part of an insurance grab. You know, there are a lot of theories, but I don't want to give in too much of that because I feel like it takes away from what really happened. I do, however, think that Nichol Kessigner needs to be looked into more because there is a lot of suspicious activity there, and she's kind of just disappeared now. You know, she's moved away, she's quit the job that she was in with Chris. You know, some say that she's in witness protection, but she is sus. You know, she could be getting away with murder. You know, sometimes I think to myself, how did Chris conceal these bodies all by himself so quickly? I feel like maybe he could have had help, and maybe Nichol was there to help him. Why couldn't he have just left Shannan? Why did he have to kill? And could it be that he killed his kids because Bella had walked in and seen her mum on the bed, lifeless, you know, because she was old enough to talk and to kind of, you know, connect things? Is it that he killed them because she was a witness? People do ask these questions. You know, there's just so many questions. There could be so many reasons as to why he did it, but I believe he was just plain evil and just wanted to get rid of the family burden. I don't believe that he planned this for weeks and months. From the murder to the confession was way too quick. He never thought of a story or excuses or anything like that that really seemed concrete. Everything he said was very suspect, very wishy-washy. Her belongings and medication, things still in the house. I feel like if this was a long plan, that he would have planned it better to not get caught. Everything kind of just unraveled so quickly that it makes me think that this was not a plan. But I mean, I could be wrong. Anyways, guys, so that was the end of this case. I know it was super intense, super long, but I just wanted to kind of cover most things. Please let me know your theories or anything that you've heard. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please let me know if you have any case suggestions. Put them down in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Bye.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong. He helped